Justice tomorrow morning. That's it for now. It's 2 minutes past 9.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. For great value van insurance, go online to theaa.ie.
Persistent rain staying over the northwestern part of the country, and it will head eastward later on. Some more scattered showers are on the way further west too. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show.
With Paddy Power. Fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Manchester United have just taken the lead away to Luton Town, 1-0, about to go half-time. Juan Mata with the goal. As you might imagine, it's not a first choice. Manchester United 11. Henderson in goal, back four Williams. Maguire is there by alongside him tonight as opposed to Lindelof at the weekend. Wan-Bissaka is back in at right back. They have Matic and Fred in midfield. Van de Beek is in front of them. Mata, Lingard and Igalo, the front three, give or take. Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent. Good evening. How are you, Dan?
Evening, Joe. How are things?
Very well. You were down in lovely Kerry not so long ago?
No, as were you.
I was down West Cork and then Dingleway for a little break. Staycation, of course, Dan.
Yeah, is that even a correct term as well? It's just a holiday, really. Staycation is just an American thing, really, isn't it? You know.
Well, I think
staycation you meant to actually stay at home, like in your house or something, isn't it? It's not actually.
I think there's this. Unfortunately, there was a certain point, like the misuse of the word literally. Eventually, the arbiters of the English language relent and just have to accept that
it literally wasn't a staycation.
Yeah. Usage is such that literally now doesn't mean what it once literally meant. And staycation is it's. Excuse the pun, it's here, Dan, it's here to stay.
It's here to stay, we can't get away. Well, anyway, here to stay, yeah. Oh, God, this is dreadful. Let's talk about some football instead, Joe. This is.
Well, tell me what you made of Kerry. This is what I want to know. So I'd never really been down Kerry way, so I found Dingle beautiful and West Cork amazing. Yeah. I was a clear island off West Cork and Mizzen Head, absolutely stunningly good. I mean, the weather was so-so and there were a couple of semi-boring days where you were just kind of watching the US Office season 5 to pass the time. But when the weather was good, Dan, it was glorious.
Well, I didn't watch any of the US Office. Wow. Well, then, but no, yeah, Ken Mayer, sort of Sneem, Carter Daniel. No, like I've been down once or twice to Kerry, you know, more so Killarney and stuff like that, but never really sort of, travelling around, having a look at Valentia Island and various sort of beaches or coastal sort of parts of Ireland that I hadn't seen before. I mean, it is true that it's sort of. I think maybe I'm just in an echo chamber from sort of people that I speak to, but I certainly think that there is a sense that like it's made people appreciate Ireland a bit more. Like there are actually like tremendous parts of this country to visit, and like you actually can feel like you're away. It's not. Yeah, some people will just have the mindset that they need to have the sun on their back to like call it a holiday, but actually. There are sort of tremendous parts of the country you can properly go and see, and we'll probably get more chances to do it, I think, over the next while. But I don't know. Yeah, I think I'd recommend it anyway. I have no hesitation in doing so.
It's looking that way, by the way, on the more chances to do it point. It's all feeling a bit doomsdayish right now, isn't it? Anytime we've spoken about this, I've tried to stay away from the pandemic predictions. It's always I think it'll set you right, but you can't help it because what else do you do but you think about it, right? Like I was having a discussion with someone earlier today where I made this point. I was like, for these predictions, like some people were saying there'll be no sport in 2020. Some people were saying there'll be full stadiums in July. And you can review it every 3-4 weeks and you can change it. So having said this and saying, I don't think we should do pandemic predictions, I then started speculating about what will happen with the Euros next summer, almost in the same breath. And like, that actually is like probably, you see what's going on in the UK, obviously today with Boris Johnson and the statements as regards that they were all ready to go with crowds from October the 1st in racing and football and I guess all other sports. And now they're suddenly talking about 6 months. I was watching one of the racing channels earlier where they're talking 6 months. Like the discussion is suddenly, we can't have a Cheltenham without crowds almost, and That's March. I can't March. Cheltenham was when it started. Can we really be within 6 months of Cheltenham again? I was like, oh, actually, yeah, we sort of are. And there is no doubt that, like, you know, sort of without sort of, you want to avoid scaremongering with all these discussions. Like, people want light relief from it when they listen to some shows, but there is no doubt that, like, I mean, it's a lot of major sporting events, and more so like associations and organisations, are going to face a really challenging 2021. Like, I know I can only talk about the world I sort of work in or speak to, that, and it's a story that's brewing, unfortunately, that I mean, there's a lot of chat about the Euros in Dublin next summer, and people don't really know where it stands, I guess. And even I speak to people involved in football here, quite naturally, around September, October time, start to think about, well, what's our squad going to be for 2021? Like, well, actually, we can't really budget for this at the moment. We don't know if there's going to be fans in the stadiums and et cetera, et cetera. So actually, I think the players' union here today have even launched something to really urge players strongly to basically think about other careers, just in case players that are full-time this year will have to be part-time next year, purely because clubs can't offer full-time budgets. And I mean, that can be a very Irish thing, because we've had financial problems here. But you see what's happened in England in recent times, like Macclesfield. I know there was separate reasons why clubs have gone under, you know, to do with their own mismanagement. But like, some of the stuff about what's going to happen in football, I think in the lower leagues in the UK, it's going to be very serious, really, really, really serious. And I know we've sort of gone off on a slight tangent by talking about it, but it feels like you just can't avoid it now.
No, it does. You didn't see Professor Anthony Staines on the Claire Byrne show last night, did you?
I did, yeah.
That was chilling. So there were two things he said. He said, one, this isn't, as in COVID-19, isn't the deadly pandemic that we, and when he said we, I think he meant the medical community, have been anticipating and fearing would come. You know, i.e., my interpretation of that was there is a more deadly version, like what you've seen probably on that movie Contagion, which everybody got sucked into watching. You know, that there's always the possibility of that. And he said this is a dress rehearsal for that. So that was a grim thought. And then secondly, he also raised the distinct possibility of a Europe-wide lockdown in spring 2021. And it was at that point I said to my other half, no, TV is going off.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just like all the discussions you have probably veer into this, don't they? I mean, you want escapism from it, and like that's why it is so tremendous to have the games that we do have, you know, that we can watch, or even, you know, the golf the weekend or whatever you're into, like whatever your sport is.
It feels like a miracle, actually, increasingly.
It does really, yeah. I mean, and look at those earlier predictions about why, you know, there would be no sport in 2020. Like, I can see where it came from at the time, but it was just, you know, they've now realised they had to make it work, you know, for a variety of reasons. And like, I'm grateful now for, particularly actually as well, to be honest, like, you know, I think people that in the media have to also be conscious of like how they speak about it, because like, I can still go to games now. Like, I'm very lucky. I can go to games. I can go to, say, Ireland games in Dublin and stuff like that. And obviously a lot of people who that's part of their, you know, that's part of their hobbies, you know, like their social structure, their life is built around going to these games and stuff. And like, that's been taken away from them. So I think like sometimes journalists who are going to games in the UK or whatever it is have to be conscious of like how you come across, oh, it's not that great, but at least we can go. You know, at least we can be there and experience it, and the TV audience can experience it in sort of a way. But it is sort of it's hanging over us to some degree, really. Now, I think almost we're like, any day you want now, you could do a piece or a discussion or have, you know, something about what's going to happen with this next year, and really you're sort of well within your rights to speculate what it might look like now. Like, we have all this pressure around Ireland needing to qualify for a Euros in Dublin, like the tournament you could never imagine missing out on, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to have, you know, this tournament in our city, you know, and you know, and never mind all the other stuff. Economists will say it could be worth whatever, you know, 200 million to the economy or whatever. That stuff is just, you know, there's an element of fluff with some of the figures, but there's obviously something behind it as well, that this festival and celebration of, you know, people coming here. And now you're looking at that going, that's next June. You're thinking, I wonder, you know, I wonder.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
like, it's
absolutely.
It's,
yeah.
And like again, like we've sort of never getting into predictions, which is not the thing. But I guess you can't avoid it when people are now coming towards planning for next year. And isn't it funny as well? I saw the comment made today. Yeah, in the same breath, you still have like the top clubs in the Premier League still spending unbelievable amounts of money on players, which in some respects, emphasises how they really operate in a different world to so many other aspects of the sport and the industry that they work within. Yeah. And there's still like this titillation and excitement. Like we'll have a transfer window clock coming soon, I mean, it's there already, I think, but we'll have a deadline coming, and you see sort of, unbelievable amounts of money being spent at the top when there's going to be clubs at all levels of the game really in bother, and you sort of wonder, when does the discussion happen about what about you maybe trying to stump up and help people here, rather than, well, we could talk about that, or maybe, but isn't the Chelsea-Liverpool game very interesting? And you sometimes just sit there and go, there's something not quite right here,
With that in mind, there are a few things I do want to get your thoughts on. I know you have done a background piece on Jimmy Dunn, scored at the weekend, and we're all interested in his progress, and you kept an eye on Aaron Connolly over the weekend, and he was very good. But just before that, there is an area broadly I'd like your thoughts on. QPR at the weekend and Coventry City did not take a knee prior to their match on Friday. So this was the first time that has happened in a televised game since the Black Lives Matter movement really came to the fore and became very much part of English football, and they have absolutely defended themselves. I'll come to Les Ferdinand's quotes in a moment. He's the director of football. But first, here is the QPR manager, Mark Warburton, and he was explaining the decision to Sky Sports.
We asked the players, it's all about the players and what do they want to do. And as a group of players, they came back and said, look, post-lockdown, absolute respect for taking the knee and what it stood for, and the belief in the cause, absolutely. But as I say, after X amount of games, where do we stop? And we use the comparison to Clap for Carers, which I think is a very appropriate one, in that week 1, 2 and 3, that was a lump of throat, very emotional, what was going on and the role of the NHS. We think no less of the NHS 8, 9, 10 weeks later, or 2, 3, 4 months later. But it got to the point where the power of the message was being diluted. And it's the same here now. It's not a token gesture. Don't go out, laugh and smile, bend down, take a knee and say, I've done the job. That's irrelevant. As I say, QPR as a club works to make positive change. And as I say, as we Clap for Carers, we feel it's run its course.
I think Les's point in the statement was that actions mean far more than just gestures. Is there a degree of fatigue at this sort of thing now? Do you think just the gestures, and it's been diluted, as you say, it's about actions? QPR are a club who are taking actions.
Absolutely,
for a number of years.
And bearing in mind we work in a very diverse community in a really important part of London, so yeah, without doubt, I thought the CEO's comment today was very appropriate. I can wear a pin badge. It doesn't mean I'm doing anything to make positive change. It's about actually going into the community and impacting positive change, playing your role in that positive change, and QPR to a man do that. As I said, the playing squad have been outstanding in that respect, so they haven't got to take a knee, Aidan, to say what they believe in and understand the importance of the cause. As I said, I don't want to see is make sure that if 2 or 3 guys don't take the knee, they cannot be vilified for that decision.
So that's Mark Warburton, QPR manager. Les Ferdinand is the director of football at QPR. Dan, some of his comments, we invited him onto the show, but he feels he's said his piece and he's leaving it at that. A similar line of thinking to the QPR manager there. He says, taking the knee is very powerful. We feel the impact has been diluted now. In the same way Clap for the Carers was very emotional for us all, it got to a stage where it had run its natural course and the decision was rightly made to stop it. Does that mean that we as a nation don't appreciate our NHS workers? Of course it doesn't. He says, no one's more passionate than me about this topic. I've spoken on the matter throughout my footballing life. I work for one of the most diverse clubs in the country. He says, recently, I took the decision not to do any more interviews on racism in football because the debate's just going around in circles. People want a nice soundbite when something happens, but how many of the media who have criticised QPR over the past 48 hours genuinely want change? The taking of the knee has reached a point of good PR, but little more than that. The message has been lost. It's now not dissimilar to a fancy hashtag or a nice pin badge. Those media that have been quick to question us should be looking more inwardly. And then he went on to say, finally, our under-18s were forced to abandon a game in August against a Spanish side due to racist abuse. More than 12 months on, UEFA have refused to deal with the situation. Spanish FA have done nothing. What media coverage has been given to that? Not nearly as much as has been granted to QPR not taking a knee. The thorny issue of when English teams were going to stop taking a knee was always going to arise.
Yeah, like I think at home here they put a limit on it. It was sort of symbolic to do with, I think, the number of minutes that George Floyd was trapped for, and then the corresponding series of games. So there was that was the gesture, but then there was an end point with it. Without sort of being crude in terms of the choice of language. Yeah, I think it's very if the club obviously just stops doing it and they make no comment on it, you leave yourself open to all sorts of criticism or questions. But I mean, if that point is articulated very clearly as it has been, that you have to respect the point of view and let that sort of trigger a debate. I mean, it is true that the first couple of games you were at or you watched where it happened, it sort of did feel like symbolic or historic, whereas now you're almost, you see so much of it that it's almost like a sort of a pre-match handshake or something to some degree, that it's a formality that you go through, and you wonder is it as impactful? So someone needs to set the agenda about moving it on to something else, or having a discussion about whether it's impacted. I don't know what more you can say about it beyond that, really. I think there's I don't think there's a sort of a mob saying that people are doing the wrong thing, really, is there? No. Maybe they've received some commentary and feedback, but when you have a club there, certainly that has previous experiences of forms of racism, and someone like Les Ferdinand, who's again very well able to present his view with points, and I don't see how anyone could really have an issue with it. And it is strange. I was watching a bit of basketball the other night. The Lakers were playing the playoffs, I think, and I hadn't really, so I decided to be half watching it, and then it was a free throw, and you realise the players do have Black Lives Matter on the back of the shirt as opposed to their names. And you're thinking, that does make you stop and think for a second, because I hadn't been expecting it, I guess, in the context of that game. And it's oh, wow, But then I haven't been watching that sport regularly, and I just tuned into it. Whereas you watch so many football games now, it's just a thing that they do beforehand. But I don't know, it seems wrong to say, well, they've made the point now, let's move on with it. It's not that, but it's about having a more intelligent, some kind of lasting legacy in what you do. But you would hope that maybe the gesture already has achieved it to some degree, and it's achieved awareness to some degree. But I don't know, people say it's about education. So, should you be pumping large amounts of money from Premier League clubs towards programs? I know there'll be contributions made to various, there's various schemes and stuff that exists that's there. But I guess maybe that's where you go with it from here. I don't know what you think. I mean, should they stop it? I mean, maybe does it still, are you still picking up new people every week and making them think about it? I don't know,
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to disagree with what Les Ferdinand is saying, and there's no doubt it has become routine, and therefore the impact has been lost somewhat. On the other hand, you could argue that, I mean, is there a better way to get how many millions of eyeballs on this issue for 10 seconds several times over every weekend around the world? It's probably not, even if it's become a routine gesture, and if it strikes a chord with a dwindling number of people, maybe it's better than nothing. I guess you can understand Ferdinand's concern, and it's the same applies to the Kick It Out campaign, where it was criticised as well. You wear T-shirts before a game, and a complacency sets in that, well, that's all we need to do, and I think Ferdinand's almost saying, well, hang on here. This has now become that. So actually, can we get back to really what tangible things are being done? And so you'd have to think that's a very, very fair point of view.
Yeah, I think so.
But it feels equally tricky to say, well, that's enough now. Racism's been cracked. So
I don't know how you bring it.
There's that message that goes with ending it.
It feels like that there should have been, we are doing it for X amount of games, or some. Point in the road.
I think in hindsight, if they could have picked an end point in advance, it would have made this less tricky terrain. But emotions were so heightened at that point that was never going to happen.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think where football has gone wrong, and not it's maybe generalizing a bit, but obviously it's reaction to, say, racist abuse in the stands, as has been mentioned, like in their QPR instance, and like a higher profile ones in games around Europe. Now I know not every country in Europe now has fans in stadiums, and like the games are actually being played in these sort of weird environments, that it's almost like when the game returns to, again, some version of normality, you want it so that, like, there's a stronger stance taken when something happens that you need to react to. But I know it's a tough one.
It is tough.
It's a tough one. It's a difficult one to just sort of preach about.
Yeah, for sure. Not least given our life experiences.
Absolutely.
Before I get on to Jimmy Dunne and Aaron Connolly, we don't have to dwell on this, by the way, but it just struck a chord, I think, last night. People mightn't have seen it. Micah Richards was on Monday Night Football, and they were discussing the Les Ferdinand issue, and it just came up in the throes of that conversation that, and yeah, like I was conscious of this myself, and it must be very difficult for any, we're seeing the diversity in panels broaden massively at the moment on our television screens. Sky Sports clearly made a huge issue, and like one of the terrible things, and you'll hear Micah Richards here, is that those pundits are then just being destroyed by, frankly, racists on social media. So this was Micah Richards last night.
I'm here working for Sky Sports, one of the biggest, networks, corporations in the world. And I'm here because I believed in myself. I love football. I love working with Jamie. I love working with yourself. And, I'm in a privileged position. And I did this through hard work. And it's not, the hard work that I put on is not going to be tarnished.
But do you feel that the perception of you has changed through the Black Lives Movement?
Yeah, I've got people on Twitter, I've got people on Instagram. Oh, Micah Richards only on because of this whole Black Lives Matter movement. But I've had conversations with corporations that I work for way before this, and now I'm getting tarnished with the same brush. Oh, he's only on TV because of Black Lives Matter, which is disheartening for me because I put in the work. I work every single day at my craft. I've been a professional footballer. I've won a Premier League. I played at the highest level, and I'm still getting stones thrown at me, you know what I mean? So if I've got to fly the flag, if people want to throw stones at me, I'll happily take it because I know I put in the work.
I've no doubt he is getting that reaction, and I know that other pundits are getting that reaction, and it's really terrible, but it's definitely a reality of where we are at the moment. A few other points to put to you then. So Jimmy Dunne scored at the weekend for Burnley. Aaron Connolly scored as well. We didn't touch on any of this with Pat Nevin last night, Dan. Jimmy Dunne's background came from St Kevin's. He was at Man United for a lot of his academy years, isn't that right?
Yeah, St Kevin's was only a small part of his story. He was actually with Rock Celtic in Dundalk before he went to Manchester United when he was 15. Yeah, so he's from Louth. He would have actually been going to the Manchester United Academy in Belfast from when he was 10. Wow. And he, which was they still have an academy there. And so he went to Manchester United, and I guess, a common story, that he would have been at Manchester United, got released, or it didn't work out in the sense of when it came to sort of when you would get your contract, your big pro contract, he just wasn't happening for him then. And went to Burnley from there. But it's pretty much like he's 22 now, Jimmy Dunne. I think when he joined Burnley, he might have been 17, 18. And he's had, I think, 5 different loan moves. And he's gone up and down the leagues. He was sort of Barrow. I think, I think he was Accrington Stanley then, and Hearts, where he did very well. And then Sunderland and Fleetwood, where actually Joey Barton and him didn't see eye to eye at all. Hearts, he was very popular. Around that time, there was talk he might even declare for Northern Ireland because he wasn't around the Ireland under-21 squad. This would have been when Noel King was in charge. There's actually a sort of a crossover between like the ex-Manchester United players who go elsewhere. His agent is actually Johnny Evans' dad, would you believe?
Right.
And who was also involved as a coach at the Manchester United Academy. And Colin Murdoch runs the agency that Johnny Evans' dad works for. And Colin Murdoch was an ex-Manchester United player who never made an appearance but had a great career Preston, and then played for Northern Ireland and so on. So I think Jimmy Dunne has people around him in his life who've proved his life after Manchester United. And around that time, so the Northern Ireland thing, all of a sudden he was called into the Ireland 21 squad, and then Martin O'Neill even named him in his last senior squad. One of these big 40-man efforts didn't make the cut, but so he's had a reputation for a while as being a good player, but hasn't necessarily always internationally sort of been to the forefront of his generation. And then at Burnley, and they have a few injury issues at the moment. Ben Mee and Tarkowski are out. He played in the League Cup last week, and all of a sudden he's in there playing next to Kevin Long, who in some respects has a very similar career. He's just 8 years older, and that loan moves galore and is quite low profile. But at Burnley, I mentioned in a piece yesterday that Martin Keown on BBC on Sunday was referring to young Kevin Long. And Kevin Long was 30, but he'd only played maybe 29, 30 games for Burnley, which was the reason. But Jimmy Dunne, he played. It was tough defensively, but I don't think you could say he was at fault for 4 goals they conceded. Like Burnley are light squad-wise at the moment. And I mean, you wouldn't be shocked if Sean Dyche is sort of looking at, trying to bring in players before the window was out. But he's in the last year of his contract, Jimmy Dunne, and now he's got a Premier League game. Hopefully, he will hope it leads to maybe more games, and it's his chance to sort of. It's a big year in his career, whether it's at Burnley or elsewhere. But he's now played, and we'll see where it takes him. Like it's very hard to know. Like it's such an uncertain time, that age of 22. 23, and like his next move is a big one. So hopefully, he does enough at Burnley that they want his contract to be signed and sealed, and they see his future there. But either way, he's out there now. His name, we're talking about him. People are talking about him, and they can now refer to his Premier League appearances, hopefully, as a reference point for where he goes.
Okay.
But we have a lot of players in the Premier League at the moment, Joe.
Yeah, I know. It does feel like there's been a little bit of a... 16, okay. It does feel like there's been a kind of mini revival, which is good. So Aaron Connolly falls into that bracket. I don't try and be a controversialist on Twitter at the best of times, Dan, but during the Finland game, I did tweet that Aaron Connolly looked like he really had a lot of tools raw tools to be a very useful player, directly going to players at times, and pace, and there's a finish in there. You suspect. We saw the one against Spurs last season, for instance. Geez, the replies were negative. Rubbish, terrible, useless was the general consensus on his 2 games. Now, and like, you have 140 characters, or however many it is now, 220, is it? Aaron Connolly spent a lot of that game getting ball around the halfway line with his back to goal and a defender up his backside. So, I was making a general point that this guy actually looks like he could be a really useful player that we don't have tons of going forward. But the consensus was not for me. But he scored at the weekend. You were watching this game in full. Yeah,
I think Brighton are good, actually. I watched Brighton against Chelsea. I thought they were decent. I thought they were better than the scoreline. And I mean, they really did a job on Newcastle, and they're good to watch. Social media around those Ireland games earlier in the month, Joe, was bizarre. Maybe it's because I wasn't at an Ireland game and I ended up sort of online more than you would, and it sort of made you despair, really, to some degree. This is... But is it like... I mean, you can't... I mean... And Joe, it's a separate thing. We're listening to Michael Richards on a way more serious issue, but like, if you read every comment you encounter, it's just like I think it gives you maybe an exaggerated view of like how that correlates with reality, in the sense of like, I think most people think Aaron Connolly is good. I don't think, the ratio of replies saying useless reflects how a public perception of him. He's a very good player.
How was he at the weekend?
He was good. Like, they were very comfortable. Like, they scored 2 goals in 10 minutes. I think with Aaron Connolly, we're going to have a lot of discussions about him and where he plays for Ireland, and I think that's going to be a challenge. Like, he played in the middle of almost in the middle of a front 3 a bit on Sunday. It was almost like a 3-4-3. Now it's 3-5-2 that they often play at Brighton, but like Stephen Kenny is playing him on the left of a front 3. That's where he played him for the 21s. And I think he probably wants to play him in that role. Whereas Aaron Connolly, I think, is probably more comfortable and prefers to be in that central position. And then he spins wide like he did for the goal. But I felt with the Ireland games this month, you could see his ability was there, but I felt at times, like on the left, that left-sided role off the ball, he sort of was like he just wasn't. He wasn't comfortable. Right. He just wasn't comfortable. But then you could see when he gets the ball, and I think that like Stephen Kenny's thinking is that if you have a central player who can hold the ball up, like an Anita or McGoldrick, that Connolly can just spin off and make these runs, and it can be a great option. But when Bulgaria were a bit deep at times, he just, I don't know. I thought it was a struggle for him. And even the Finland game, you can see he's a good player, but at the same time, I think, he was way more liberated in the Brighton game. But then again, they were way on top.
Okay.
And so it's a trouble. But like, he's got loads of ability. I think he had a slump at the start of the year where I think there was contract uncertainty, and I think there would have been concerns that his head wasn't quite switched on, and he's a young player, so you have to expect that there's going to be highs and lows. But I mean, this is the second season. This is meant to be when it's the awkward second season for a player, and he started it very well, which would make you hope that maybe he's had that little rut at the start of this year, that maybe that could be a good maturing experience for him. But I still think where we play him in an Irish side is going to be a debate, because we have good number 9s as well. So we're going to have a lot of forward players, and Connolly's favourite position may not necessarily be where Ireland need him, and that's going to be an issue.
Okay. We have, I knew the clock could get away from us. It was all that time talking about staycations. That was our
that was a tangent. I mean, you're an experienced radio professional, Joe. Don't talk about staycations.
It's actually all anyone has texted in about, I hate to say, for the record. Staycation is staying in your own gaff and then going on day trips. A trip to Kerry is a holiday, says an 80s kid.
Exactly.
Look, we don't have time. So very quickly. FAI set to announce the ex-FA, as in Football Association over in England, commercial director Jonathan Hill as new CEO. I think people have seen this story at this stage. Gary Owens pulled out. Sarah Keane of Swim Ireland, very impressive candidate, was interviewed by Zoom on Friday. And ultimately the FAI, Roy Barrett, they've gone with Jonathan Hill. So, and sorry, briefly here, it's notable they've gone for an outsider, that's for sure. What thoughts on this guy?
Yeah, they've gone for an outsider. I think there's two aspects to the appointment. One, I think the outsider to me sort of made sense. No reflection on any locally based candidate. But I think with everything we're reading again about Irish football and all that's went on over the last while, if you're looking at candidates who may have worked alongside or with or around, or in the same sphere as people who were around the FAI, I think that just could have posed complications, however unfair that might be. But I think more so,
you can't be named as an attendee of John Delaney's 50th birthday in Champagne football and go for this job. That's a job description. That's number one.
We still haven't got the full guest list yet, by the way, at this stage. But I mean, yeah, it seems like everyone who's there wants to try and distance themselves. They weren't enjoying it at the time, obviously, but they told us that 3 years later. But I think the more to the point with Jonathan Hill was it's commercial, that Sarah Keane probably and other people would have been viewed as governance candidates who can run a good ship governance-wise. But it's very clear, and it goes back to the start of this discussion, that the FAI just need to generate a lot of money over the next while. And I think the candidate who they're leaning towards is someone who's very experienced in that sphere, more experienced in the area of commercial rights and activating sponsorships. All the big sponsorships are pretty much up, and a good CV. But of course, and while I was advocating going for an outside candidate for a number of reasons, you still have to learn the ropes of the sort of idiosyncrasies of where you're coming to here. But certainly there was a strong case I can understand the case for going for someone with that background, because they're going to need to generate a lot of money almost without COVID, but now with COVID, even that need is even more pressing, and real imagination is going to be required to get through the next couple of years on a number of fronts.
Yeah, it seems I think in your piece you made the point he's presided over a €400 million spike in commercial deals during a 5-year stint with the English FA in 2009. So I'm sure that sounded very, very good in the interview process. Dan, we didn't get to everything, far from it, but we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Joe.
Dan McDonnell from the Irish Independent. Manchester United still 1-0 up away to Luton, 63 minutes on the clock.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
The Pat Kenny Show.
On tomorrow morning's programme, Paul Reid of the HSE on their preparedness for a winter of flu and COVID-19. Children's author Jacqueline Wilson on her new book, and on coming out this year, the UN General Assembly meets remotely at a time of massive global turmoil. Bill Hughes goes behind the scenes of the movie Shampoo, and of course, all the breaking news.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Matter Private.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
On News Talk.
For an amazing deal on a used car, get down to the Renault Selection Sales Event from the 14th to the 26th of September. See how our low-rate 4.9% APR offer saves you over €1,000 versus the majority of high street banks, and get 3 years warranty and roadside assistance too. The Renault Selection Used Car Sales Event from the 14th to the 26th of September. By appointment only. Book at your local Renault dealer today. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply. Deposit required subject to lending criteria. See Renault.ie.
Ireland is getting back to business thanks to the determination of local enterprise. At Bank of Ireland, we're committed to your financial well-being, which is why we offer the new government COVID-19 credit guarantee scheme. Accessible, lower-cost business loans to help you take your next step. We can, we will begin. Apply now at bankofireland.com/business. Lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Bank of Ireland is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Sustainable living? Own it at Experts Electrical Stores nationwide with Bosch. Save water with Bosch IDOS washing machine smart automatic detergent dosing. Save energy with their perfect dry dishwasher technology. Save waste and keep food fresh for longer with Bosch Vita Fresh fridges. Live like a Bosch at your local Experts Electrical Store and expert.ie.
Sign up to Air Gigabit Fibre broadband today and get our fastest connection ever, the Air Sport Pack free and Amazon Prime Video on us for a whole year. All from just $29.99 a month. For more, call 1-800-500-300. Go in store or visit air.ie. Air, let's make possible. Subject to availability, pricing refers to Air Gigabit Fibre 150 meg. For full terms and conditions, go to air.ie/gigabit fibre.
Are you ready to transform your home? At Fairco, we are often asked, when is the best time to order new windows and doors? Now, no matter what time of the year it is. To achieve our high standards, we need a little time, from initial consultation to stress-free installation. Fairco design windows and doors to your specifications, then deliver. If you're thinking of transforming your home, contact Fairco today. Showrooms in Deansgrange and Santry. See fairco.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Welcome back. Still Manchester United 1, Luton 10-0, 67 minutes on the clock. Very happy to say that Lisa Fallon is with us, head coach of London City Lionesses in the FA Women's Championship. That's the second tier of English football. Promotion to the Super League would be very nice indeed. Lisa, you're very welcome. Jeez, it's hard to keep track of your CV. Oh my God, busy to say the least. Northern Ireland and Michael O'Neill, 2016, Cork City, the Dublin Footballers, Chelsea last year, and now you've made the jump. So you're the one whose fault it is if things go wrong.
Yeah, 100%. It's great. I'm really enjoying it, I have to say. It's been a long road, but amazing experiences along the way. And this is where it's taken me now to this point. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm enjoying it. It's obviously been very challenging with the whole COVID-19 stuff in terms of getting the players back into training and adjusting and socially distanced training, and we're tested every week and stuff. So it's been really interesting, but all the time learning to adapt and adjust and work in this new world that we have at the moment.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, please, Lisa. I had you down as analysis and strategy coach. That was the official title at Chelsea, who were obviously a serious team and a huge club. The opportunity to go to London City Lionesses, which is formerly associated with Millwall and have broken off now on their own outright. I get the temptation to be head coach, and then again, you're looking over your shoulder at Chelsea or this huge operation. So what was your head at when the offer came through from London City Lionesses?
Yeah, I think, I suppose it comes a point where you're going to, as you say, take the jump, and I felt it was a really good opportunity. It's a young club, and there's an opportunity to build something, to create a culture and an identity. And I felt I've learned a lot in each environment that I've been in. So, as you said, with Cork City, with Northern Ireland, with the Dubs, even with Sheriff men's team, and then obviously at Chelsea, which was, incredible experience, an incredible place to work. Such as you know, we were based at Cobham, so the men's team are there as well, and just to have the opportunity to work in that environment and see what was different to the levels, because obviously at Cork City, Northern Ireland, and Dublin, it would have been extremely high levels and very professional setups. So for me to see what was different and what was the same, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the League of Ireland that is really good and really professional, and some really good coaches and managers operating in the league, and just to go and operate in that type of environment for me was brilliant as well. I really enjoyed it, albeit it was working in women's football was quite new to me, because obviously for the 10 years previously I had been in men's football. So again, really interesting for me to understand the different requirements and the different skill sets that working with men's teams and women's teams required of me. So again, really great learning curve, and yeah, it was just one of those ones. At the time and place, it just seemed to be an opportunity, and I felt it was one I could take and something that I could do, and one that really interested me as well.
And what were the different skill sets required going into women's football then?
Yeah, I think, the women's team environment is quite different to the men's team environment. You're dealing with different personality types, different group mechanics. So it's, the two environments are quite different. But in terms of the nuts and bolts of how you actually prepare your team, the type of work that goes into the training, the preparation, their nutrition, the physiotherapy, the fitness training, the strength training, all the tactical work, all of that stuff is exactly the same. But certainly dealing with men requires different skill sets to dealing with women. How you deliver stuff, how you coach it, how you manage them. It is just slightly different environments. And generally, but I find it all the time. Every environment is different because you're dealing with different people and different personalities and people with different backgrounds and different motivations. And you have to understand that and be able to adapt to each environment and be able to bring your skill sets so that they fit the environment and the culture that you're in. Because as high performing as all four of those environments were, they're really, really different environments.
And so the group mechanics you mentioned, that's very interesting. Is there a specific or concrete example as to how you might deliver a message or how you might handle a female group versus a male group?
I find that female players question things a lot more, and whereas males tend to take the information on board and do it, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's, people learn and take information on in different ways. And it's about understanding how to transfer that information from my brain to the pitch so that it transfers into details that matter in a game. And again, it's just the group dynamics are slightly different. And the crack as such might be slightly different with the two environments. And it's about being respectful of both environments and understanding the needs and how you deliver information, because certainly the way I would have delivered information to the Sheriff men's team or the Cork City men's team would be very different to the way I would deliver it to the London City Lionesses team. Okay. And if that gives you any kind of an indication, both environments just require different skill sets from you.
So London City Lionesses, as I mentioned, are unusual in that they've broken away from Millwall? I mean, generally we're used to looking at the women's game and it's the Arsenal ladies, the Manchester United ladies and so on. That's quite an exciting thing to be a part of. This has all happened relatively recently, I think 2019 territory. So you're kind of in at the bottom floor here. You're only 2 games into this season, Lisa. What would pass as a good season in your first year in charge, in the midst of a pandemic and in the midst of getting the club off the ground? I mean, I guess a bit of realism has to kick in here too.
Yeah, of course. If you look at the division, Liverpool got relegated into the division as a result of the Women's Super League not completing. And because of the points per game, the PPG, the way it was weighted, Liverpool were the team that got relegated. I certainly believe that if the season had concluded, Liverpool would not have been relegated. Right. So you've got a club like Liverpool that really needs to be back in the WSL. And then you've Leicester City women who have gone in full time with the men's and massive investment. And they're paying, they've recruited all their players effectively from the WSL. Right. So in terms of competing in that, only one team will go up.
Okay.
This season. So
that's not easy.
No, and then you've got Sheffield United, who came second last season. Villa got promoted. So Sheffield United would have been seen as strong favourites to go up again, but obviously the dynamics of the division have changed a little. And then there would be the likes of ourselves and Durham and a couple of other clubs who would be seen to be ones that could potentially be there to knock on the door and maybe, challenge and take points from some of the bigger teams. But certainly the ambition of the club is to become a WSL club and to be a team that not just gets there but competes there. So the club has big ambitions and very much driven towards that. And, I can see that in terms of the resources and the facilities and what we have. Like, there's nothing we don't need. We have everything really that we need. So it's a really good, solid, professional, full-time environment, and you need that in order to compete. You need that in order to be able to compete. So the fact that we have that is helpful, and it gives us an opportunity to build something, and obviously put down a football philosophy and look to drive things on over the next year and two.
Okay. I didn't realise that the funding was that good, and that is obviously needed if you're going up against, if Leicester are putting that much into it, and increasingly the bigger clubs are. So how do you build up a fan base from, do the Millwall fans who were coming along stop going? Because I know the Millwall ladies team are now in the 6th division, or how does that all work?
I don't know, because we've not had any fans in any of the games yet.
Yeah.
Everything is behind closed doors, and with the announcements today, that's certainly not going to happen anytime soon. So I think football is going to face some serious challenges in the coming weeks and months. Particularly clubs that aren't in the elite divisions. So it's I think, what the fan base is. I know I've certainly had a lot of the London Irish community get in touch and rally up behind us and say that they want to be down at games. And I know there is a cohort of fans that go to the games as well. And, there is a fan base there. But obviously, unfortunately, since I've been there, like I said, I've started in the middle of a pandemic, so I haven't had the chance to even meet any of the supporters yet. We got a lot of good wishes and stuff from them, but yeah, unfortunately, it's unusual times that we're in, but I'm certainly looking forward to the time when it does come and it becomes possible to have them there.
Yeah, geez, strange times to be kicking off. You've obviously worked under lots of different and high-performing environments. For instance, and I suspect you get asked this all the time, but what would you have taken from what you saw with the Dublin camp and Jim Gavin?
A lot. The commitment, humility, work ethic, just that will and that drive to work as hard as it took to win and keep winning and keep getting better and push to find the extra margins or the new margins and never be content with last year's success, that every new year and every new game is a new opportunity to go and test yourself and challenge yourself. And it was, I grew up as a Dubs fan, and to have had the opportunity to work in that environment was incredible. It was something I was very grateful for. And, you know, you learn so much from every environment. And Jim was an exceptional mentor. And he gave me a lot of confidence by bringing me into that environment. The fact that he thought of me for that environment was very humbling and a genuine privilege. And I felt a big responsibility too, because you're going into an environment that's already proven successful, and you know, feeling that weight of expectation that, you know, certainly I would always put massive pressure on myself to always continue to improve and learn every day, and just to have had the opportunity to go into that environment and see through a different lens maybe what else we could bring, or share some of my previous experiences in different environments, or just look at things through the way that I viewed my previous experiences in terms of players I had come up against previously in my other roles, and how we strategized around that. So for me, that environment was unbelievable. It was one of the greatest privileges of my career ever, and it will always be. But yeah, I was so grateful to Jim for the trust and that he put in me, and the confidence he put in me to bring me into that environment, and also the players and everybody else there that I had the opportunity to work with. It was brilliant. I really enjoyed it, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
I'm sure. So look, we wanted to check in with you ahead of a busy season. Durham on Sunday. We wish you well. Best of luck. We might check in a couple of weeks' time or months' time when things settle down, and hopefully it's all going very well. But Lisa Fallon, in the meantime, best of luck with London City Lionesses. Thanks a mil.
Thanks a million. Take it.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
This is Air Gigabit Fibre Broadband. A faster, stronger, more reliable connection. Your own line straight to your home. The future at 10 times the speed of life. Get Air Gigabit Fibre Broadband from just $29.99 a month. For more, call 1-800-500-300. Go in store or visit air.ie. Air. Let's make possible. Subject to availability. Pricing refers to Air Gigabit Fibre 150 meg. For full terms and conditions, go to air.ie/gigabit fibre.
Why get a used car when you can buy a squeaky clean, brand new Dacia from just €99 per month? A down-to-earth car brand with shockingly affordable prices that certainly won't leave you with a bee in your bonnet. If that wasn't enough, buy a brand new Dacia Sandero and also get €500 cashback and 3 months deferred payments. You do the maths. The Dacia range from only €99 per month. Visit your local Dacia dealer today. Offer is made under a hire purchase agreement subject to lending criteria. Terms and conditions apply. See dacia.ie.
The all-new OTB Sports app. It's all videos, sports news, live scores, interviews, podcasts, all waiting for you. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download now.
Sustainable living? Own it at Experts Electrical Stores nationwide with Bosch. Save water with Bosch IDOS washing machine smart automatic detergent dosing. Save energy with their perfect dry dishwasher technology. Save waste and keep food fresh for longer with Bosch VitaFresh fridges. Live like a Bosch at your local Experts Electrical Store and expert.ie.
Refresh for success with a design communications course at Griffith College. Become a visual storyteller through practical project-based learning. Dublin, Cork, Limerick. Visit griffith.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power. Fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
Okay, welcome back. So we're pretty much done for the evening. Manchester United 1-0 up, 82 minutes in the clock, away to Luton in the Carabao Cup. Let me see the other scores. West Ham 5-1 winners against Hull, so they're safely through. And the Spurs match didn't go ahead due to positive COVID tests in the Leyton Orient squad. So that's where we are in the football this evening. Tomorrow, OTB AM, as usual, is coming your way 7:30 on all our social channels. Martin Lipton will be on talking all things Spurs. and Jaron and Neil Tracy will debate Ireland's strongest 15 in the rugby right now, ahead of the internationals on the way. And then tomorrow night here in the radio, Stephanie Meadow will give us the inside guide to the Irish Open host venue, Galgorm Castle. She knows it well. We'll have Keith Wood on Wednesday Night Rugby, and hoping to speak to Jeremy Whittle as well, who was over covering the Tour de France and maybe questions the lack of scepticism when it comes to what we're seeing on the tour at the moment. So that and more on the way tomorrow evening. Tom Dunn, though, is on the way next.